Welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Robin Shine, and get ready for another episode where I introduce you to another amazing, interesting, intriguing, and inspiring African-American man from the United States. They come from a variety of professions, various parts of this nation, and all of them bring their wisdom. So, chill out, relax, and listen in. Make sure you follow us. We're on Instagram at 365 Brothers. Also, you can go to 365brothers.com/Linktree, LINKTREE, 365 Brothers /Linktree. You'll find links to all things 365 Brothers, as well as links to anything Robin Shine. Again, thank you, and let's listen in. Our guest today is a certified personal trainer and uses physical fitness to assist with his mental health. He's learned that both can be combined and used to help work through any life issue. And of course, his goal is to inspire others. He's also the creator and host of the Relatively Normal podcast. And I love that title because I think we can all relate to being, relatively normal, relatively. I know I'm relatively normal. In his show, he shares his experiences with ADHD, anxiety, and depression. And like I have dealt with all three of those, I still manage my day around my ADD. I don't have the H, but the ADD. Our guest today, Marc Paisant, is an advocate for therapy and counseling. I know historically in our community, sometimes there has not been a belief in therapy and taking advantage of those resources. Before we go into the questions, Marc, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners before we get started on the regular questions to help them get to know you better?
I appreciate being here, and I just want people to know that I am a father of 2 little girls and a husband to an amazing wife and a brother to an amazing brother and sister and son to an amazing dad. And God bless my mother. We lost her a couple years ago, but I do like to include my family so people know that I'm just that Black man trying to be a family man in America. That's all I'm doing.
Hey. And there's so many of you doing just that, despite the pervading stereotype that's out there. Let's start off. What's your favorite song or movie, either now or all time?
Of course, I get in my feelings with so many songs, but my favorite song of all time will always be Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. I'm an 80s baby, born in 79, 80s baby, 90s baby, and that's all I listen to. And favorite movie, this might sound weird to some people, but there's a movie named Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey.
I love that.
It's not a religious movie. It's not a secular movie. It's not an alien movie. It kind of is all three. And it really has the person watching it asking questions about religion versus atheism. And it's a really great movie that makes you think. So I will, anytime I see that movie on TV, I will sit down and watch it. It's an amazing movie.
I absolutely love that movie. The ending, at the end where she goes, I'm not going to spoil it. Where she goes is phenomenal.
Yes.
They did such a great job with that, such a great job. And I love Jodie Foster as an actress. I think she's amazing.
Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, Angela Bassett. It's just an all-star cast, and it's a really great movie.
And I love that you touched on all the different themes. But I want to ask you about Billie Jean, because I love me some Michael Jackson. Okay. I was listening on those cassette tapes, and I did break a few because I played them over and over and over. And then they would, But why, of all of his songs, why Billie Jean?
Because one of the fondest memories I have as a child was the Motown 25th anniversary show, where he did a couple songs with his brothers. Then they all go off and he does this speech where you don't know where it's going, and where he tells the audience he loves the old songs. but then he loves the new ones. And it just goes into that Billie Jean beat, and he takes the hat, and like I get goosebumps thinking about that moment. And the video itself was groundbreaking, like most of his videos, where the steps light up on the sidewalk, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I had the tapes when I was younger. I had, Bad, and I had Thriller, and I had all those things. And every time we went on a road trip, I was able to play one tape. And, we played Michael Jackson, and I knew every word to every song. And I'm sure my dad was so happy when the tape was over, because he's like, I don't have to listen to Mark sing these Michael Jackson songs anymore. So
I'm picturing, you, siblings, mom and dad in a car, and everybody knows when this comes on, you're going to sing every single word, right? Single word. I can imagine that when it was your turn, eyes rolled.
Yeah, so we went to, I forgot, we went to Jekyll Island or Amelia Island one year, and my sister's friend came with us. And at the very last song, at the end of it, she looks at me and she says, "Did you just sing every word to every song?" And I was proud. I was like, "Yeah, I did. Of course I did. Yes, it's Michael Jackson. I did that." Like, oh, why are you even asking? Like, why are you even asking? Love Michael. Love him.
I got the
love
world of it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. You've already given us one, but tell us about a favorite childhood, a moment.
Oh, man. One that always sticks out to me is I have a twin brother and I have an older sister. And every time, and we grew up outside of Atlanta. We were born in New Orleans, grew up outside of Atlanta. And every time we travel back to New Orleans to see my grandparents, inevitably my grandfather would be at work or not home, out getting us food or whatever. And every time we come in, my brother and I would hide. And there was this big game we played where my mom and dad would say, "Oh, Mark and Michael didn't come this time. They stayed at a friend's house." And, and he knew we were there. And as little boys, like we would jump out and say surprise. And they came to visit us once. And Michael and I were at school, and we came home. We were at elementary school, and we saw my grandmother, but not my grandfather. And she said, "Oh, grandpa decided not to come. He couldn't make it. He had to work or whatever." And being kids, we believed her. We're like, our grandmother's not going to lie to us. And we went down to the basement, and he jumped out and surprised us. And it was such a good memory, because it kind of talked about a lot about how he felt about us and how our grandparents felt about us. They always had us on their mind, and they always wanted to have fun with us. And I don't know why that memory, it comes up at the weirdest times. I always think about that time that grandpa used our trick on us, but that was such a good memory for my brother and I.
And isn't it funny how sometimes it's the weirdest moments that are the ones that we treasure. Sometimes it's those heartfelt moments that just, they just stay right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have to ask you, what was your favorite thing about your grandfather?
And this is something that's unique to a lot of Black families that a lot of people don't understand, is that Jim Crow laws, things that affected Black people, segregation is not, thousands and thousands of years ago. It happened a couple of generations ago. And my grandmother was the daughter of a slave, and my grandfather was a man who wasn't allowed to get education, a man who basically was working for white people for most of his life. And he did what he had to do for his family. And I really love that about my grandfather. And every time, and when I say every time, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, every time my family went to New Orleans, and my brother and I moved out when we were New Orleans when we were 4 with our family, he would get 2 things, sometimes 3, but 2 things. He would always get Popeye's chicken, which is amazing, especially in New Orleans, and some shrimp fried rice. That's what we would have. So he would always, every time we came, he would be out and get, so he wanted to have it fresh and hot for us. And then in the morning, we'd all sleep in. And if you were to get up at like 5 or 6 to use the bathroom or just here, he would be in the bathroom showering and shaving. And he would go out the door to get the first fresh batch of tasty donuts in New Orleans without fail. until, his health declined. He had heart issues, but you literally had to stop him from doing those things for us. The amount of just love and support, and this is my family. Nothing's going to stop me from showing them love. Another thing about my grandfather was my dad was very health conscious and never let my brother and I eat like sugary cereals. But every time we'd have cornflakes at my parents' house, my grandfather would sneak a little sugar on top of it to me and my brother. My dad would look the other way. My grandfather would just give us that head nod, and we'd be like, "Yeah," he'd come over and put it in there and go away. And I was like, "That's an OG right there." I love that man.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I asked. I got even more so the model, because as we began this interview, you were sharing about being a father, a son, and all these things. And you kept saying how each of these people are amazing. And as I come in from a family that's filled with that kind of love, how could it be any other way? We'll move into accomplishments. So I asked this question in two parts. First, the accomplishment that means the most to you personally, Marc. And then after, an accomplishment that when others hear it, it's the one that most often gets the or wow. So let's start with that first. Which accomplishment is the one that means the most to you?
I don't like to base my answers on work a lot of the time, but there's a specific work accomplishment that I received. That I was going through a rough patch at work, and I ended up eventually getting fired from a job, which I deserve to be fired from. I listen, I wasn't a good employee. It wasn't a good fit. And I get on with a new company and I decide to, take things slow. I decide to learn as much as I can. I decide to just take everything in and take a brand new approach to my career. And about 6 months, 9 months into my career here, I'm doing well. I'm really not trying to overextend myself. I'm setting boundaries. I'm being really good with customers and my boss. And unbeknownst to me, I had received a bunch of customer service surveys that came back perfect. My leader at the time, my manager, had submitted my name for a national customer service award. And I knew nothing about it. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, your hard work is paying off. I nominated for you this award. And you received the National Customer Service Award." And I was like, "Okay, like, what is, I'm in work mode. Okay, what does that mean?" He's like, "The company is going to fly you out to California to spend a couple of days with executive leadership, and they're going to talk with you and record some videos on what you do." And I was like, "Hold on, how many people won this?" And he's like, 8. And the company has 15,000 people in it. And I probably should have prefaced it. This is a part in my life where I'm really trying to figure myself out as an adult. I'm in my late 20s. I've gotten through a period of like food addiction. I'm still trying to get in my fitness. I'm starting therapy. Like, it's a really weird time in my life where I'm trying to just figure out who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. And I decided at work that I'm going to just chill out and not try to overextend myself and just be a sponge. And I got off the phone with him and I called my mom and I started crying on the phone because, like, it was a time in my life where I thought I meant nothing to anybody. And for him to do that, and I take a lot of my leadership skills and the things I do as a leader from him, a guy named Jeff, and just an amazing person. And I was crying, and I'm like, why? Like, in my head, I'm like, why am I crying? This is just an award. Like, it's a work award. Like, why am I crying? And I talked to my therapist about it, and he's like, "No, you don't understand. This is the culmination of you like trying to do the right things. Like, this is the culmination of you taking control of your life, making sure you're doing the right things and making changes, and you're getting awarded for it. And that to you doesn't seem valid. Like, you don't think you earn this. You don't think you deserve this, but you do. And you're just reacting to it." And I'll never forget like that feeling on the phone with my mom. And she's like, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Why are you crying?" I'm like, "I don't know." I was like, "I don't know. I don't know, Mom. I don't know." But she was always the one I called first for everything, like for everything. with my mom.
Uh,
And she was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. Like, this is just the beginning." And I'm like, "Thank you, mom." And I'm just shaking and crying on the phone. I hang it up and I cry for like 10 more minutes. And then I, I chill out a little bit.
yeah.
And, but that's an accomplishment that I'll always kind of remember. Not because it was like the biggest thing that's happened to me, but it was because of the moment in my life that it happened, and someone
Mhm.
decided to like nominate me. Like, why me? So
Mhm.
that's a really good accomplishment that I'll always like cherish.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned talking about it with your therapist. We've already
Mhm.
introduced you as someone who's an advocate for therapy and mental health. And you mentioned food addiction. What did that look like for you?
It was a feeling of not having control over what I put in my body. Now, I've never been addicted to drugs. I've never been addicted to alcohol, but there was a moment in my life where I couldn't not eat when I was stressed. I ate when I was happy. I ate when I was
Mhm.
depressed. I ate when I was tired. I ate first thing in the morning. I looked for a meal. I'm in bed and I get hungry. I go out and eat. And it was one of those things where in my head, I thought, if they make clothes in my size, then I'm fine. So
Mhm.
it didn't matter if I was a 34 waist or a 44 waist. It didn't matter if I wore a large shirt or if I wore a triple XL. As long as they
Mhm.
made it, I was going to wear it. So when I was an athlete, younger in my teenage years and even preteen years, I could eat anything I wanted to because I was constantly playing a sport. I couldn't get enough calories in my body. Like I was constantly playing soccer, constantly playing basketball, two or
Mhm.
three teams at a time, and then sleeping and eating and playing, go to school, sleeping, eating and playing, go to school. And, once I quit soccer and wasn't playing sports anymore, I still ate the way I did as I was an athlete,
Mhm.
where I should have at least continued exercising or watching what I put in my body. I fell in love with fast food because it was just so easy. After I graduated, I got jobs where I was on the road half the day. So when you're on the road, guess what you do? You eat fast food. I was a catastrophe rep for a while. So I traveled for 3 weeks out of the month and they gave you a stipend. And when you're traveling, eat in restaurants,
Yeah.
even though they put you in hotels with kitchenettes and give you a stipend, you can go get your own food and cook it. I thought, why do that? Like, just go out and eat every night.
Yep.
And I just felt better eating. And what I've learned is that our brains are amazing. And if they find something they like, they crave it more often. And it,
Mhm.
the brain always will overreach the stomach. The brain always overrides the stomach. So if you eat something sugary or something a lot of carbs, something that gives your brain that feeling of euphoria, people have to understand, like, it does not have to be a drug. It does not have to be alcohol.
Yeah.
It could be sugar. It could be
Right.
added sugar. And your brain gets that and says, "Oh, I like
Mhm.
that." Because the
Mhm.
brain, the
Mhm.
macronutrient that helps the brain the most is carbohydrates. Brain gets that, likes it. It's a simple carb that leaves the system quickly. 30 minutes later, the brain's like, "Hey, what was that? I want more of that." So even though I ate
Yeah.
30 minutes ago, the brain wants more of it. So I just keep eating, keep eating, keep eating. And anybody who's on a fitness journey needs to understand that you can work out all you want. You can run all you want. You can go to the gym. You can do yoga, whatever you want to. But the stuff you put in your body, the nutrition
Ugh.
is a major role. It plays a
Uh,
major role. And you have to get
yeah.
that under control first.
And like as we age, our hormones change.
Mm,
And so, you know how you were talking about how you work out, and then when you were young, you could eat anything you want. Let me tell you something. It sneaks up on you as you age, regardless of sex. But I've had this conversation with a lot of women. Your hormones change, and all of a sudden, what was fine
mm.
ain't fine no more.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And men, same thing goes for you. So
Yeah.
don't think you can go eat a half dozen donuts each morning and just go work it out at the gym. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah. Congratulations on doing that turnaround, reassessing, and then changing that path. And how great it is that you did get that acknowledgement, that external validation of who you are. Not that it's needed, but when we do get it, hey,
Mhm. You're absolutely right. And I had, again, having a conversation with my therapist, I was talking about how I'm the type of person that you only need to talk to me when I do something wrong. If I'm doing something right, like just leave me alone. And he's like, do you know how difficult that is as a person to know every time someone's going to speak to you, it's going to be about something you're doing wrong? It's like people need to know when they're doing the right things too. And I was like, I never thought about it that way. And getting external validation is such a great thing. And I think people need to make sure we reach out and talk to people about that.
So what about the accomplishment that is the or wow when others hear it?
This is not an accomplishment. I'm 6'5" and I'm 235 pounds. And I'm like, you notice me when I walk into a room, and people are always surprised when I say I'm a twin. Maybe this is more of an accomplishment for my mother, to be honest with you. But, and it's really weird because I'm half of the twin. So it's not weird to me, but people are like, oh, you're a twin? Yeah. And he's the same size as you. It's like, yes, we're twins. And so when people see us together, like these two tall Black men walking into rooms, and they're like, wow, that's crazy, which I think, saying it out loud, it means nothing to me. Like it means it's just my brother. I played soccer at Clemson. He played soccer at the Naval Academy. He's a naval officer. It's just regular life to me. But it's like people can't believe there's two of me in the world because of who I am. Again, that probably didn't answer the question, but I really believe like that's to get that answer you want, or people are like, oh wow, like
I get that. First of all, we just don't see twins that often. It's still kind of like, woo, whenever a tall person enters the room, we notice those who are height blessed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember those. I'm sure you do since you're a twin, but remember Doublemint and all the Doublemint
commercials?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Right?
And we couldn't get away from it. We couldn't get, like in high school, I didn't have a first name. I was known as the twins. Like one of the twins. Like I don't think people knew my first name until I graduated because it was said over a loudspeaker, but it was the twins.
Even now myself, when I see twins, I'm like, oh. Yeah. But then when you combine tall, handsome, and Black and twin, it's kind of like, oh, don't see that every day. Let's talk about words. What is a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book, and why?
There is a quote, MLK quote. It's the one that I love the most. And it is, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. That really sparked something in me the first time I read it. I think it says a lot about a person, how they act, their work ethic, what they demand of themselves when times are tough and when things aren't convenient, and when it might take a little extra work, and when they're not always looking for the easy way out. And for a lot of my life, and it took me a while to really understand this and come to terms with it, I often looked for the easy way out. I often looked for the way I could get a quick buck, or often look for the way I could, duck out of having to do something. And this is not me being hard on myself. Like there's a big difference between me being hard on myself and self-deprecating, all that stuff. Like I'm being real with myself now. And,
yes,
and for me to look inconvenience in the face and say, I'm still going to work hard. And it kind of brings me to I don't know if you've heard of the shopping cart theory. A lot of people have. I coach my daughter's soccer team, and every year I tell it to them a couple times a season. We all go shopping, and we all get the shopping carts, and we all have a decision to make with the shopping cart. Do we return it to the stall, or do we just leave it propped up side of the curb and go with our business? And I'm not judging you if you do, but I'm just saying.
Thank you. I'm one of those.
Okay. But the shopping cart theory is there's no reward for bringing your shopping cart back, and there's no punishment for not bringing it back. So what makes people bring the cart back? And it asks the question, does someone need external motivation to either do good, or do they need some kind of external punishment not to do bad? I like to say it to the young girls I coach because I want them to understand that work doesn't need to be done just when people are looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
It says a lot about a person when they do the hard things and get in the trenches and care for other people and have empathy when someone isn't watching them do those things. It took a lot of motivation for me to do things in the past. And now I realize like, I don't need that motivation. I just want to be the best version of myself. And I want people to know that they can trust me and they can count on me when they couldn't in the past.
That's cool. I just love the earnestness, the candidness, and sharing how you were before, like, yeah, I'm gonna just leave the basket here, whatever.
Yeah.
As an example, the metaphor, right? And then, really taking on being a contribution, and not just for the sake of being acknowledged as a contribution, but for the contribution that it is. Speaking of experiences, what is a conversation, moment, or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or had a significant impact on your life?
Both my brother and I were supposed to be in the Navy. Actually, let me take that back. I don't think I was ever supposed to be in the Navy, but I went to the Naval Academy with him. Mm-hmm. And within 12, 16, 18 hours of being there, I was like, I've made a terrible mistake. Went to Naval Academy, and if you stay all 4 years, you have to give time back to the government. You have to be a naval officer, and I wanted nothing to do with that. The second day I was there, I said, no, I'm not doing this. This is not for me. I don't know why I came. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. And it was kind of given an ultimatum like, well, you have to be here for at least, I forgot the amount of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, mm-hmm. before you make a decision to leave. I was an 18-year-old kid, and I basically told them, you can keep me here as long as you want. I guarantee you I'm not doing anything. And at that point, they were like, oh, well, I guess this kid really wants to go home. So, and that started a really interesting trajectory for me. So again, my brother and I were both highly recruited soccer players out of Georgia, and I had chances to go to other schools. I had chances to go to a bunch of state schools in Georgia. I had chances to go to school in South Carolina, up the East Coast. And, I remember coming home and talking to my dad on the way back, and him just saying, like, Mark, I knew you didn't want to go there. Like, I knew you didn't want to go. Why did you go? And I went, and I'll say this, and I love my mom to death, and she knows this, and she's watching over us right now. She wanted the best for her son. And my sister had a former husband who was a naval officer and got the Naval Academy in her brain. And from that moment, she was like, my boys are going to the Naval Academy. I never wanted to go to the Naval Academy, but I went because it was my mother. Like, what are you going to do? It's my mom. But I ended up finally making a decision to get into a later session at Clemson. And from there, I always think about that decision I made to say at that moment, I don't want to be here. Because if I hadn't done that, I never would have met my wife. I never would have had these kids. I never would have made the lifelong friends I've made. And life would be totally different. The biggest thing about this that I wonder about is when I was that age, between 18 and 25, 26, maybe up to 30, I was in a headspace where I didn't trust the person I was. I was extremely anxious. I overthought everything. I got in depressive states where I thought the world was ending. And, with the stresses of the military, like I always wonder, would I be here right now? Like, would I be here, Marc Paisant, 2020, would I be here right now? But I decided at that point that I was going to take a little bit of control of my life. And because of that decision, I have my two beautiful girls. I met my wife. We live in this great house in this great neighborhood. Like, I have a very good job, and I love the people I work with. And it's like, you look back and there's the split second decisions you make puts you where you are. It's me deciding that this isn't going to be my life. And I don't know what my life is going to be, but it's not going to be this.
Sometimes you don't know what you want And that's okay to not know what you want. You can start with knowing what you don't want.
That's a great,
right?
that's a great point.
And that's what I hear was that defining moment for you. It's like, you know what? I may not know exactly what I do want, but I know in this moment, this is what I don't. And to stand by that. I do wonder, what was it like, since I'm guessing your twin stayed, right?
Yes.
And so was that one of the first times that you guys took different paths?
Yes. The thing about me is I had this want, this desire of independence for a while. And to know that, I don't know if I've ever said this out loud, to know that my brother and I were going to be at the same college, like, didn't excite me. Like it really didn't. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love my brother and I love to be near him and be close to him. But it's like, man, I kind of just want it to be me. At a certain point, independence teaches us a lot. I can tell you right now, the moments I learn the most about myself is when I'm alone and when I can really become introspective. I think I may have been wanting to get away from the twin moniker and just be Marc Paisant and just be Marc. Because I had never been Marc. I had been one of the twins.
So that hadn't occurred to you, though, that was that opportunity.
It never did. No, wow. No, it didn't. It just didn't.
That's why I like talking. I love conversations. That's why I'm interviewing 365 men. You think it's just about you? Yeah. It's like, no. I learn, you learn.
It's weird. I haven't talked about this. Like, I've opened up a lot of things, but that couple months between like me graduating and like going to the Naval Academy and then coming home and getting a job for a few weeks and then going to Clemson, like I haven't talked about that part of my life in so long. Like, I haven't gotten in this much detail in so long. So it's kind of like there's stuff popping into my head just having this conversation with you. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. What is a moment or event that either signifies or in some way highlights your experience as a Black man in the United States?
Every Black person, especially every Black person in Georgia, remembers that kind of 1 month of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. It's a time in our lives that a lot of us won't forget, because I'll speak for myself. I know I speak for a lot of other people. I was mad, but I was scared, because there's always the thought of, what am I not going to do to get shot? What am I not going to do to get choked out? I'm a runner. And immediately my wife was like, you're not running at night. You're not running before dawn. I don't care if you hadn't run all day. You're not. Unless the sun is out, you're not leaving this house to go on a run. Because I live in a suburb of Atlanta, but there's still some farmland up here. So if I take just a one specific turn in my neighborhood, I can get some horses and cows. And I stop at a grocery store that I've never stopped at before, but it's just on my way home. And a woman taps me on my shoulder, a white lady about my age. And all she says was, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't even know what's going on, but I'm so sorry. I just wanted to come over and give you a hug. And I hugged her back. And we embraced for it was a longer than normal hug. I mean, I'm sure people who may have seen it may thought we knew each other, but we didn't. After we stopped hugging, I just stand there and I remember I was in the meat section. She walked away and I just stood there just staring. And I started to tear up a little bit. But then I realized I didn't say a word to this woman. Like, I didn't say anything to her. I didn't say thank you. I didn't have a conversation. I did nothing. And I'm looking around the store for her and I never found her. I mean, it was literally 5 minutes after I never found her. Yeah, I remember posting online about it and just having that, just remember feeling like this is what it's come to, where there's people in this country now, especially white people, who are apologizing and saying they're sorry for the actions of other white people in this country. for the actions of the government, for the actions of people that are in power. I'm not saying she did anything wrong, but it's amazing that she has to do it, or she felt compelled to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But that moment where that woman did that, it really sparked a nerve in me, because I want that to be a special moment. But at the same time, it make, like, if you really think about it, it's like, why did that have to happen?
Mm-hmm.
That had to happen because a young woman who was asleep lost her life because of an incorrect raid, incorrect search warrant. A young man crying to his mother lost his life because the cop decided to use a method of force that he shouldn't have been using. And then another man lost his life because two white men thought they could just shoot a man while he was out for a run. And it's just like, that really affected me and it really moved me.
I don't know this woman, but I know for some non-Black Americans who were apologetic on behalf of, they were also apologizing, I think, in their hearts for their willful disbelief.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly what was happening. Again, I'm not faulting her. I commend her for that. It's like, yes, the fact that she felt she had to do it is just amazing to me.
Speaking of those incidents that sparked that moment for her, share with us your experiences, your interactions with law enforcement.
Yeah, I think a lot of Black people are this way. Like, listen, you don't have to keep telling me, oh, most police officers are good. Like, I know that. Like, I understand that. And, going to school in Clemson, South Carolina, the cops were, at the time I went there, were really cool. They made an effort to be out in the community and say hi to everybody. But there was an incident, and it's funny how you remember things. And when you were a child, you thought nothing of it. But as an adult, you understand what was happening. My parents had to talk with my brother and I. They had to talk with us of how we interact with cops and how we interact with people in authority, positions. And my brother were driving on a Sunday afternoon to a cleanup session with the soccer team and other athletics at the school. And then we're going to practice afterwards. And so we have these two Black guys in this Acura Integra, not even that nice of a car. It's just an Acura Integra, 2-door, way too small for us. It's a hand-me-down for my sister who's in college. Standard system, no subs in the back, no 12s, no 15s, no nothing. It's a nice Georgia day. We're on Peachtree Industrial, about to get on the highway, about to get on 285. And, whoop, whoop, the lights are behind us. I was driving and I'm like, well, I wasn't speeding. I wasn't, this is okay. It's kind of weird. There's no way to pull over because it's an intersection. So I literally just pulled into the median and just stopped. And the cop comes over and, I think he was very surprised to see two Black kids with a Catholic private school written across our shirts, both of us. And it may have changed at that moment. Yeah. And he told us we're getting pulled over because our music was too loud. And we were just like, okay, there's no bass boost in this thing. One of the speakers is broken. Like, I don't know he said, oh yeah, it's law that if we can hear within 40 feet, that's a violation. And we're like, and immediately I was like, you were 2 cars over from us. Like, how? But I was like, whatever. So I asked for my license and I give him my license. My brother is sitting passenger side. And he said, I want to see your license too, which now he really didn't need to see my brother's. Like, he wasn't driving. Right. But immediately my brother says, oh, it's in the trunk. Let me pop it. And he goes to the glove compartment to open the trunk. And we're just 2 kids trying to get to practice. And immediately his hand goes down and says, no, don't reach for that. Don't reach for that. And I was like, and at the time, my brother, we have soccer practice and community service on our mind. And we're like 15 minutes away. But I was like, whatever. This didn't sink in that my brother made a move for the glove compartment and he made a move for his gun. 2 16-year-old boys, 17-year-old boys that didn't have a record. I know you ran my plate, so you saw who it was. And for either that's muscle memory or you really think in the middle of a Sunday in an intersection, this Black kid is reaching for something in the glove compartment. Mm-hmm. After you pulled us over on a bogus violation. Mm-hmm. And again, we go to practice, we tell people what happened, we're joking about whatever, and we get home and we said, oh, mom, dad, look what happened to us. And their faces became like serious because they're raising 2 Black boys in Georgia. And tell us what happened. And all the laughing about what happened and all the joking like went away. Where our parents were like, you have to understand what happened. You have to understand the role you play in this world and how people will perceive you just because of the people you are. Nothing to do with what you've done in your life, nothing to do with your character, nothing to do with any of that. It's the perception within a split second, seeing who you are. And every time I hear these things on the news of police officers discharging their firearm with no basis other than a perceived threat. Mm-hmm. And what's hard for me to explain to people is I wake up a perceived threat. I go to sleep a perceived threat. Like there's nothing I can do to change who I am, but to some people, I'm already a perceived threat. So I have to live my life extra cautiously. And I understand that people are like, oh, don't do that. Live your life how you're going to. Like, who cares what people say? Like, you be you, Mark. I have 2 girls that I want to come home to every night. I have a wife I want to see every night. I have friends. I have people who depend on me. If it takes me to be half of who I am at a given moment, just so my daughters can have a father, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. I've been pulled over again when I was in my 20s, and it was a situation where it was late at night. I couldn't sleep. I went for a ride, and I see the sirens in the back, pitch black in Alexandria, Virginia. And I decide I'm gonna cruise till I get to a gas station. Pitch black. No way am I being pulled over right here. I don't know who this person is. Right. I cruise for about a half mile, pull into a gas station. It was a Black cop that pulled me over, and he was mad. He was mad, big mad. When I put my lights on, you pull over. And I scream back at that. I'm like, I'm not pulling over in the dark. I don't do what you want. I'm not pulling over in the dark. I hadn't done anything wrong. They were just investing. A lot of people in this area this time at night are okay. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, so they shined a light through my car and took my license and saw everything was good. So next time this happens, you pull over immediately. And I told them, like, next time this happens, I'm going to do the same thing. Like, I don't care if you take me to jail because I cruised for half a minute instead of me pulling over and you thinking something that's shiny in my car because you can't see. Like, bump that. Like, no. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing both of those instances. When you were saying how people say, just if you lie, don't, and it's like, like, it's not like we're saying somebody might spit in your face. Right. No one wants that either. But that's not the same thing as someone mistaking you as a threat and then you being shot. It would be irresponsible not to take that possibility into consideration.
I fit the description. I always fit the description. Always. I can't stop fitting the description. So, and you hear me talking, and you see I'm educated, and you see the person I am and the life I live, and all that goes out the door in a split second because, we were looking for a Black man between 5'3" and 6'8", and you fit. Like, come on, man. Like, come on.
My God. It's when you said it's because I'm laughing just because you said between 5'3" and 6.
It truly is. Like, how many videos are there out right now? There's videos where they're looking for a white dude. Hotel video a few years ago where people are like, that's not him. He's white. And sir, get on the ground. Like, what are you talking about? I'm Black. Like, the amount of disrespect is ridiculous. Like, they will always have us fit the description.
If the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, mother, lover, sister, neighbor, stranger, you call it, what would you say to her, Marc?
I would say that you deserve better. It's unfortunate that we've done what we've done to you, but you deserve better. But I would also implore her to really keep believing in us. And I mean it for multiple reasons. One, there is that physical reason of what we're doing to our planet and, making sure that we leave this place as good or maybe better for our children and future generations. But there's that socioeconomic, there's that cultural part of it where we have broken up tribes, we have broken up neighbors, people, we have put people in parts of the world that they don't want to be in. We have abused systems. We have used greed to rule nations. And we've not listened to her. So just keep believing in us. I'm trying to be hopeful with this because it's such a tough question. It really is. I don't want to say sorry. I don't want to say we could do better. I just want to say you deserve better, but please keep believing in us.
What is a moment that exemplifies love for you?
I was truly blessed, so was my brother and my sister, to be in a two-parent household that lasted. My parents were married for over 50 years before my mom passed away. We would take these family photos together, and I was a pseudo photographer. I did it for a little bit. I got the equipment, and my mother was like, "Oh, bring your camera with us. We're going on vacation and we're going to take this photo." It's one of, I think, 2 or 3 photos we have as a family that is both of my parents, me and my wife and my 2 kids, my sister and her husband, and then my brother and his wife and their 3 kids. The kids are really small. We all decided to wear white. And those moments in movies where they talk about the matriarchy or the patriarchy, and they really there's that moment in a lot of movies where it's like exemplified of how the father reacts to the kids and the grandkids, or how the mother has her, matriarchy duties. And it's such and it can go one of 2 ways. It can go like crime boss family, or it can go like intimate family that cares about each other, getting over something together there. And it really brings the audience into how much that part of the movie means, or how much that part of the story, how important that part of the story is. And every time I look at that photo, it's such a good photo of us. And I remember people looking at us after we were taking the photo. And we must have got a dozens. "Oh my gosh, you're such a beautiful family. Oh my God, you must be so proud," talking to my mom, my dad. And the funny thing about photos like that is that, it may have been a point where my brother and I weren't getting along very well, or a point where my sister and my mother weren't getting along very well, or my wife and I may have been in a disagreement, or my kids were fighting, or something. Like, people weren't getting along at the time. But it's a photo of people who care about each other, and people who, even if we're fighting, we're going to get through this and we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it means so much to me to see that photo. It's one of the, last photos, all of us sit together, and I can't remember anything else about that moment other than that picture of my family, of my mom, my dad. And it means like that just signifies love to me, because we were celebrating that weekend. We were celebrating my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. 50.
Yeah.
Who does that anymore? That's crazy to me. For me to think like 50, 5, like that's crazy. So that's my moment.
I love that. We haven't actually talked specifically about what you do and what you advocate for, your podcast. This question is, what's something that you would share with listeners, either from your experience or your professional life, that you don't think that it would make a difference to share with people, because most people don't either think about it, or it's just not front of mind?
What's hard for a lot of people to understand and grasp is what race truly is. Like what divides us. And race it's a social construct, and we all have different skin colors. I understand that. And the first, humans were in Africa, and people don't want to hear that, but it's true. And then depending on where you moved, where your tribe went, your exposure to the sun changed and your pigments changed. And which basically means two things. One, we're all the same. And two, race is social. It's a social structure. What we also need to understand is that in society, we have decided to make race mean a lot more than it should. Now, am I sitting here telling you that my blackness isn't important? Absolutely not. Like, I love being black. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it. But society has made us, or made some of us believe, when I say some of us, I mean humans, some of us believe that race pigeonholes people into who they're supposed to be. Like for the longest time, we thought that, and this is true, this is not hyperbole, we thought black people weren't smart enough to be NFL quarterbacks. That was something that went through. Oh, they're good with their muscles and their speed, but they don't have it up here to be NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's too tactical, too much strategy.
Exactly. So what I'm getting at is the fact that I would love us to get to a point where race meant nothing. But I think we have to understand that race means a lot. And for instance, there's plenty of white people that have said this out loud. Oh, I don't see race. I don't see why it's such a big deal. I just see the person for who they are, which is, listen, if we lived in a utopia, I would be totally on board with you. But to that person, they have to understand, if you come to my city and we walk through Atlanta together and walk through certain points, you're going to feel uncomfortable just because of the skin you're in. And I'm going to feel cool. I'm going to be good. We walk through other parts, you're going to feel comfortable just because of the skin you're in. And I'm going to be like, I got to get out of here. So I really want people to understand that race is really a bigger thing than people take it to be. Like, it's just not my blackness and your whiteness. And we're not, it's about the social structure that people put on it. And I really hope that people can take a moment to really think about what that does to a black man's mental health, what that does to someone who constantly has to think about, like, here's the thing. I don't think about being black. I'm just who I am, Mark. Like, I don't think about being black. Yeah. But those moments I start to think about being black is something's probably going wrong. Like, oh, what's happening? Like, people are looking at me. I didn't steal anything. I had a moment when I was a kid in middle school. We went to a field trip to Rock Eagle, and one of my best friends and I went into a little jewelry store, and we were just looking. We had no money to buy anything really, but halfway through it, the guy was like, "Well, if you're going to buy that, let's buy it, or you need to put it back." And we both looked at each other. We're like, "What is he talking about?" We're like, "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Oh, well, you need to put the ring back." I was like, what are you talking about? And there was, this guy had hundreds of little trinket rings or whatever, and one was missing. And he immediately blamed me. Immediately blamed me. I took everything out of my pockets. I did the whole rigmarole. Sir, I didn't take this. And finally, he let us leave. So this is back before we had cell phones, before we had internet, before any of that stuff. And I went home and told my mother what happened. Within 30 minutes, she had found this store. I didn't know the name of the store. I didn't know the person's name. And within 30 minutes, my mother had found the name of this store. And she told me to get on the phone, take the phone. And that same man was apologizing to me for what he did. When I tell you my mother was a mama bear and a straight OG, I am not playing with y'all. Like, my mom, this is yellow pages, white pages, 411 type stuff.
I'm just appreciating, because I know when you say she was mama bear and that he apologized, I'm laughing because I'm imagining
You
the
don't
conversation
play, you don't,
had
you
with
did not
him.
play with my mother. I know she would have been
Because
like,
this is a grown man. This is a grown man. You are not in front of him. She is not in
mm-mm,
front of him, but she has had a conversation with this man that he is on the phone apologizing to you.
mm-hmm.
I got your mama, baby. I see
Yeah, I
that.
got, yeah. And I can just imagine this man not even thinking about that anymore. And then getting on the phone with this black woman talking about, did you accuse a young black boy of stealing a ring today? And he's probably like, oh, how do you know? How did you get this number? Oh, yeah, I'm his mother. And you're going to apologize to my son. Like, I can only imagine the fear that man had that she was able to find him in such little time. And I gave her no information other than where I was, not the name of the place, nothing else. So, and it's little things like that that we have in our history that we have to just, when I talk, a lot of stuff I talk about is about empathy. And I think a lot of us need to learn it. And when I say that, when I tell a white person how I feel or what happened to me, I don't need the, oh, well, that they didn't mean anything, or come on, Mark, that can't really affect you. I don't need that. I don't want like that. That makes it worse. I would love the person that's like, I have no idea how that feels, but I would love to learn. Those words right there. But it's so hard for a lot of people to say that. But that's what I wanted to share about race. Like it's totally social, totally social. Now, are there type of diseases that have affected black people more than, white sickle cell? Yeah, different kinds of cancer. Yes, I understand that. But again, there is physiologically, like biologically, like my brain isn't different. I used to think black people's brains were different.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't realize is that before the desire to take over the resource of labor and the resource of the raw materials in various lands, and especially in Africa, where did that start? Where did this whole thing come from? It came from, it's economically expedient for us to be able to justify what we're doing. And to justify, we got, and originally enslavement was, it was Irish and blacks, and they just found that it was easier just to focus on black because then you could catch them. Whites blend in. Yeah. So, anyway, read your history, people. A Different Mirror. That's one of many great books out there. One other thing before we move to this last bit and close. One other thing about what you said about race, you actually made me think about something differently, because I know that we're really one race, but in many shades. However, I have not ever been able to conceive in my mind that we could not see race. Like it's not like I was going,
right,
come a time, won't be. But it just,
isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Right. And then I realized that when it comes to, when we say black people, you can be practically white, but with freckles and your hair is a little curly. We recognize that's black. And then you can be Idris Elba or,
Wesley Snipes. Yeah. Wesley Snipes or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And we just embrace that whole range as black. We got no problem going, all of this is black. I'm just saying something about the way you shared it. The first time in my life, I'm like, wow, I can see the possibility of, I won't say being unaware, because you know what I'm saying? I know what Idris looks like, and I know why I like Idris, and I know why,
Shoot, I like Idris. That's a good looking dude right there. Oh my God. The accent too? Damn. Right, come on, man. Right. Save some for it.
And I like him having that chocolate. And there are other people I like because they got there what they're color. But thank you for that. Thank you for creating that in your expression of the social concept.
It's kind of mind blowing. It's kind of mind blowing when you think about it. Like my grandmother was whiter than a sheet of notebook paper. She was the same shade, but my grandmother was black. My grandfather, and this is amazing what people don't understand. A lot of people don't realize my grandfather was dark. And that's what they did back in the day. Like if you were a dark-skinned person, you tried to find a light-skinned person so you could have a brown baby. Like you rarely ever see Like you're not going to see, a Drake and a Halle Berry. That's not going to happen. Like that doesn't make the right shade. Like we need, people were looking. That's crazy. And now I'm saying that's crazy to me that you were looking for someone for a kind of shade. But yeah, but that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different podcast.
That's please, I can do a podcast just on color.
Yes, exactly.
A series just on color. Mm-hmm. So now that we've had this conversation, Marc, what did you get for yourself out of participating in this conversation?
There are some parts of my life that I hadn't thought about in such a long time. And not that I hadn't thought about, I hadn't really realized what they did for me, just the value add in my life, especially the time, in college and right before college, and the time I spent with, my dad, and just the family that I've had growing up really molded me into the person I am today. And I really hope that someone listening to this can just reach out to someone and tell them how much you appreciate what they did for you and how they molded you, because that, I really just want to have a conversation with my sister and my dad now, my brother, and just talk to them about family stuff. Just talk to them about, reminisce a little bit.
Thank you for letting us into your family. And then the last thing is, at the end of these interactions with my brothers, I always am left with some word that stands out. And for me, for you, it's possibility. The possibility that you create in my mind for acknowledging the human race in multiple colors, the possibility of being apart from your twin and starting on a new life, the possibility of using therapy, you live a life in which what's possible is not limited.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's cool. So listeners, take that with you.
Definitely. I'm taking it with me.
Thank you for listening to 365 Brothers. Certainly hope you enjoyed the episode. I encourage you to subscribe. Please leave a review. I want to know what you think. Also, if you know someone who would be a fantastic guest for 365 Brothers, please direct them to our website, 365brothers.com. You'll also find all the episodes there, 365brothers.com. And your support is welcome. And remember, to listen is to love.